Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Campfire Chronicles Stories After Dark. I'm your host, Redundant. I'm back, baby. And I want to talk a little bit about creating safe spaces as a content creator um, because it came up a lot in conversation on my stream a few days ago. And I think it's important that we acknowledge the fact that it's not easy to let go of our day to day lives. I want my channel to be a place where people can come to and disconnect, if that makes any sense. Not necessarily disconnect from the internet, but just disconnect from the worries and the troubles and the struggles that we all go through day to day. Um, Back when I created my Twitch channel in June of 2021, it's been almost 2.5 years we're going on for streaming. I did that out of a struggle to find some balance in my own life. Um, those of you that know me or have known me from my channel know that I have three little boys who are on the autism spectrum, much like myself. And it has not been easy. I know parenting is not easy in general, um, but it has not been easy on me, and it has not been easy on my husband or our family. There are nights where I get minimal sleep due to meltdowns, night terrors, all while trying to deal with my own anxieties that constantly play in my head when I'm trying to get even just a wink of sleep. And when I used to work a 9 to 5 job, it just became too much. There was not much else I could do to provide for our family. And at the end of the day, I made the decision to stay home with our kids, and we made it work. It's not easy to be a single income household in 2021, let alone 2023, with inflation causing prices to go through the roof. And yeah, there are some difficulties still that we struggle with, but I think it's important to acknowledge that if you can make it work, that you don't have to sacrifice your own mental health to hold a job, do it. And that's what I did. I created my channel on Twitch. I created this podcast to talk about stories and issues that I feel are extremely important to me and how I've grown and my personality has grown. And it was really difficult, honestly, to do a podcast episode a week, which is why I switched it up to a month. But I still want to have that consistent safe space where people can come to my channel and come to my podcast and feel safe in their opinions, as long as it's not hurting anybody else. Let's just put that out there. And when I was doing karaoke night on Tuesday, um, I had several genuine interactions that I never would have expected. You're putting yourself out there when you have um, a music stream in general. People are not gonna like your voice. Not everyone's gonna like your voice. Um, and I am very, very self conscious when it comes to singing and performing, and even reading my own writing. I know it doesn't seem like it, and I know that I put on. I am not really putting on a show, but I have a good masking ability. It's part of one of my autism superpowers is being able to mask my uncomfortableness in a situation. And there's a lot of anxieties that come with putting yourself out there like that. And to hear positive feedback from people saying that like I made their week better, um, really kind of just brings it all full circle for me, because when I started my podcast, when I started Campfire Chronicles, I was not in a good place. Um, I was actively going to therapy then, and I felt so lost and so confused as to who I was because it was in a time when I was still working my job and I was unhappy in my job and I wasn't able to be the mother I wanted to be. And I have pretty big shoes to fill because my own mother, despite me only having her for 3 years of my life, she went above and beyond to make sure that we were taken care of before taking care of herself, which unfortunately I believe is the reason for her demise. Was she didn't have the support system she needed to take care of herself. Lucky for me, I do have a husband who knows my fears and my anxieties about ending up like my mother. And when I told him that I think it's time that I take a step back and just be a mom, um, while there was a little bit of pushback at the beginning, he understood how serious my own health was, the way it was going. And I know I'm not a huge creator. I know I'm not, reeling in tens of thousands of viewers a day, but I hope that the people who I reach, I hope that I'm helping them, at the end of the day, especially with Campfire Chronicles. I hope telling my story, telling my own struggles maybe will help somebody out there who's going through the same thing. And this karaoke night really just kind of solidified that I what I'm doing is good. What I'm doing is right. And I had several people reach out to me saying like, you made my night better, you made my week better. I've been really struggling. And I just want to say that I see you. I understand what it's like to be suffering from things that maybe somebody else doesn't understand. And it's okay. And this sounds so corny. And I'm so sorry that I'm about to say this. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to admit, my week has been shit. Like it is totally okay to admit that, because when we keep things to ourselves and we load on layers and layers of stress and anxieties and problems, that's what really honestly is wrong in America in general, but also the entire world. Like there's different pressures from different cultures, but in America specifically, you're looked at, for me personally anyway, my background, my story. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I am looked at by many people like, dude, that's not an easy job. Like I can't imagine being in your shoes. But then there's another group of people who look at me and say, well, I work a 9 to 5 and I also parent my kids. And that's great. I did that for years. I did that for almost 6 years. Like I was a parent and I was a worker. Um, and that small group of people is always the one that are the loudest in letting you know that they think that you are human garbage for choosing to stay home with your kids and thinking that it's the quote easy way out of being a contributing member to society. And I have come to realize that being a parent and being a mom, while it's not my only identity, I'm a writer, I'm an artist, I I'm a musician. I do a plenty of other things. Um, so while I realize that that is not my main personality trait, I know that my legacy is to leave my kids with the tools to make the world a better place. Um, and their journey is going to be hard. I went undiagnosed for years, and it wasn't easy being me, but the 90s were different. And I'm not saying that to dismiss the fact that, being um be getting ass whoopings in the middle of the Alamo was the right way of parenting, or being ignored when you were experiencing suicidal thoughts and going through depression at age 14, and then being laughed at later in life by your own parent who was the only person that could have helped. um I'm not saying that, I'm not dismissing that, because there are many, many people who were born in the 90s that feel exactly the same as I do, and had similar experiences growing up. But what I can say is that providing my children with the tools that they need to be successful and make the world a little bit better than it is today, that is something that I will leave behind, and that is what my legacy is going to be. Um, on top of everything else that I do, and that's what I hope my channel can turn into, is making people's days just a bit better than what it was before you came into my chat or came into my comment section on my podcast. And to get validation on that, even though it's a karaoke stream, I it made me feel like all of my sacrifices, everything that I have sacrificed up until this point, was worth it. I I have a hard time reaching out to people. I'm not gonna lie. I am very, very scatterbrained. I talked a lot about my ADHD and how there's so many tasks that it's overwhelming, and that kind of triggers my anxiety, which makes me kind of invert on myself. I don't reach out enough, and I know that, and I have a very hard time networking because of that trait of mine. Um, but to just see little glimmers of it here and there is enough for me to keep going and to keep trying. Um, and if you are struggling, if you are having a hard time, I promise you that my channel is here to help you through those times. I'm not a licensed therapist. I've said this multiple times. I don't have a degree in this, but I know how important it is to have support because I grew up without it. I grew up in a household where I had no support emotionally, mentally, physically, and I was forced to grow up at the age of 3 to be an adult. I mean, I've told stories before about growing up in my house, and my dad would make me make my own lunch when I was in kindergarten. There were days that I would pack things that made no sense, and I know my teachers saw that. I ate ham sandwiches every day for 3 years straight because I didn't know how to make anything else. Which is why I don't eat ham anymore. Ham is disgusting, and it's because of those years of my life. Um, and I also remember my sister being uh, yelled at to pack my dad's lunches. A grown man who couldn't prioritize or manage his time well enough to do his own lunches in the morning. I remember cracking the ice trays and putting ice in his cooler so that he could have Diet Cokes up to the brim. Like, I remember doing that and helping my oldest sister with that. When, in all honesty, at that age, yes, there is a need for independence, but at that age, we should have just been kids. And I know my upbringing and my experience wasn't anywhere close to anybody else's, and maybe, yeah, it was easier for my dad to make us into adults, um, but that took a toll on me mentally. I have never been able to just experience life without having to worry about everything else. And that, from the age of 3, turns you into a tightened ball of anxiety. So when I found moments, when I found places that I felt safe enough in, that I could express myself and be myself and not have to fear being reprimanded, God, that felt great. And to hear that that is what's happening in my own stream and my own community, I don't have words. Um, I really don't. So I guess today's story is mostly about not being afraid to find those places. Look for people who want you to disconnect, because it is so important to just experience life, and not have to worry about your outside stressors. And I know that's easier said than done, but I promise you, when you find that space, when you find your campfire that you can sit around and just shoot the shit and chill, your life will be significantly better. For today's episode, I have a poem that I wrote, and it's a little bit about what we talked about earlier. It's called Reality. I hope you guys enjoy it. Like a tattoo gun digging into your skin, what has happened to you will be carried with you in between the colored scarring. Loss doesn't change who you are. I've always believed that my DNA was mutating from the pain that hammered down on me. But that wasn't the case. Instead, your perspective on everything changes. For example, there's a tree in your front yard. Most people will see just the tree. I see that leaves don't grow 100% across the branches anymore. I know that the third branch from the bottom is rotting from the inside out because when the wind blows, I can hear cracking. I'm gonna need to cut that soon. While I'm no expert at dealing with loss, I am an expert at living with it. Living with loss is like swimming in the middle of the ocean. Storms bring waves to crash down on you, and then comes the calm, the silence. The pure exhaustion from the water sinks into your bones, sucks you down with your head barely above the surface. The water pulls you into its embrace. You know you should fight, but the drowning, it's peaceful, quiet, simple. After losing my mother, my innocence, and then my first child, I've learned that even though it's easier to drown, breathing after breaching the surface is the only way to move forward again. Losing someone is the end of how things were. That's just reality. I hope you enjoyed Reality, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are enjoying the episode, make sure you mash that subscribe button on YouTube, the follow button on Kick and TikTok. I'll see you guys next time.